My name's Lindsay Mashburn, and today we're going to talk about task number 4, which was a self-actualization project. So in the month of December, we decided that we were going to focus on 2 words. We were going to focus on empathy and compassion, and we were going to talk about how those words can embody a person, how we can change the world, change our school, and change our classroom. So the first thing that I did was I discussed the difference in the 2 words. We talked about what they mean. We talked about synonyms on what compassion was, what empathy was. We gave examples. So I want to read you the definition that I explained to my kids because it was really powerful in how they build on each other. So we talked about compassion. And with compassion, compassion is a deep feeling of sympathy and concern for others' suffering. But it also combines the desire to help alleviate it. So there's action behind it. And so moving from empathy, which is feeling how someone is, putting yourself in their shoes, to compassion, which is action behind the empathy, we were able to embody both words and build on our vocabulary and our depth of knowledge. So after we learned about what the words mean, we practiced examples and talked about different language on how we can respond with empathy. So we got examples and we looked at the examples. So here are a few that I did. I posted different examples around the room and we did a scoop. So we walked around the room and we discussed how we could respond with empathy. So one scenario might be that there's a student in your class that it's their very first day, which actually happened a few weeks after we did this project. So the students would look at it, they would discuss, how in the world would I respond with empathy? How can I put myself in that person's shoes and help feel for that person? So we did that, we talked about different things. Then our next step was a class bulletin board. So in the hallway, we wanted to showcase what we have learned. So my students created a shoe and they talked about how they can show empathy. So they gave an example. They also talked, this one right here, which is why it is so important. Empathy is an amazing skill, but it's very difficult for students to be able to do because we all have different backgrounds. And so it's nice to be able to teach them how to use empathy and then deepen that by showing compassion for others with action. So after we did that, we discussed how we were going to create a couple projects for the rest of the month of December to showcase our knowledge on empathy and compassion. We created a huge anchor chart of all these ideas that we could do for our project. I wanted the students to have voice, so that's why we created a list together. After we created the list, we discussed that we were going to pick 2. So the 2 that my students decided that they were going to do was 1, a canned food drive for our local food pantry, and 2, we were going to create cards for our local hospital. So I thought these were interesting because they're a little bit different. One of them focuses on our school, so I loved that. So the first thing we did was the canned food drive. So we discussed, are we going to do it class or are we going to do it school? We discussed that we were going to do it school. We want to make a bigger difference. So my students went on our morning announcements and they taught the school about empathy. They taught them about compassion and how we can do both of those things and make our world a better place. So after they did a few days of what is empathy and what is compassion, they introduced our project, which is our canned food drive. So we challenged the school for every class to set a goal. And so they set a reasonable goal. For example, my class's goal was 250 items. We looked at what that would look like per kid, how we can all come together for that goal. And so every class set a goal. If every class met the goal, they earned an extra recess. So it was kind of buy-in for the kids as well. Then we discussed that there needed to be a prize because we wanted there to be incentive and encouragement. So after that, they had a pizza party for the class that was able to get the most canned foods for the school. So every day the kids came on, they gave an announcement, hey, the leader is Miss Mashburn's class. Congratulations, they have 241 items. And every day they would update the leaderboard. We also put this outside the office so that they could see how our compassion and our empathy is growing by all the items that we've created or we've brought in. And so we brought in those items. At the end, my class was able to raise 486 items. This was huge because my demographics this year is pretty low. I've got a lot of students that are in poverty, and so it was kind of interesting for them to be able to put themselves in someone else's shoes or even their own shoes, but where we can create an atmosphere of care and compassion. So our school was able to raise over 3,000 goods for our local food pantry, which was amazing. We boxed them all up and we took them to the local food pantry, and the kids, it was wonderful. It was great for our whole school. It was something I plan on implementing in future years, every year, because during the holidays especially, it's a hard time for students to be able to show empathy and not just want. My personal kids are the same way. It's more important to give than it is to receive, and that's kind of the message that we wanted our kids to be able to get this year. After that, they picked a project. They picked to do some Christmas cards for our local hospital. So one of my students' parents, their mom, was diagnosed with cancer about 2 months prior. This was something very hard for this student and their family. And so their mom was going to treatment at a local hospital, and the little girl came up with the idea of cards. They said, let's show empathy and compassion towards people that are sick during the holidays, and let's see if we can cheer them up. So we love that this was something that was impactful for someone in our class, so we chose this one. Students created beautiful cards full of messages that were inspiring and encouraging for others. They were able to put themselves in their shoes and their family's shoes for the holiday and figure out a way to encourage them during this hard time. So this was fun. The kids were able to look at the cards and talk to each other and how can we make an impact. And so we were able to make those, and then we gave the cards to the little girl, and she was able to go with her mom a few days before Christmas to our hospital and give them out to all the patients. She was able to come back this week, and it was amazing. With tears in her eyes and joy in her heart, she was able to tell us how those simple cards, those simple projects were able to change the attitude and the mindset of these patients, how they felt like people cared about them, and how they knew people were genuinely thinking of them and making the world a better place. So this was a great project. I was very proud of my students. Follow up, I plan on doing 2 new words each 9 weeks with my kids, and we're gonna at least come up with a couple more projects every 9 weeks to make our world a better place. Thank you.